Hey, welcome to Breakwood Carpentry. In this video, I'm going to show you how I coated the garage floor using Rust-Oleum's Rocksolid Garage floor paint. Now, one of these kits covers up to 500 square feet. They say that's a 2.5 car garage. I have a 2-car garage that's 400 square feet, 20 by 20. And I ended up using 2 of these boxes. And I probably should have used another 1-car kit. It got a little thin in some areas, but in this video I'll show you what I did to prep the floor, and I'll show you some things you could do to maybe improve your results. So the first thing I needed to do was remove all of this shelving that the previous owner had installed. It had power running through it, and it was also Tapcon to the floor and to the wall. I decided to leave the wall shelf and just cut the legs off. That way I would have a place to store my tools while I worked. Now my floor was pretty grimy, so I decided to pressure wash the whole thing first. You can skip this step if your floor is relatively clean. My floor was previously painted as well, so I needed to find a way to get the coating off. I have a friend who has this floor sander they let me borrow, and I also have 3 12-grit sandpaper pads. This ended up not working out very well, and there's a bit of a learning curve when it comes to using the machine. If you lift up or pull down, that tends to allow you to move left or right. I got a little aggressive and ended up ripping my first sheet of paper, but was able to get through the entire floor with just the second sheet. After sweeping away the dust created by the sander, I realized that this was not going to work. So this is what the floor looked like after I finished sanding the entire thing. There were still some paint spots, and I probably got about 25 to 30% of the overall paint. So I resorted to using an angle grinder with a diamond cup. This was a bad idea. There was lots of dust, and it ended up gouging the floor in spots, but I figured I could just sand it all over again and smooth it out. If I had read the directions more thoroughly, I would have realized that as long as the paint isn't chipping up and doesn't get pulled up by duct tape, then you're probably fine to coat over it, and the coating should stick. It was too late at this point, and I already ground down the entire floor. So after a lot of sweeping, vacuuming, and more pressure washing, I was finally able to continue on with the package directions. So the first thing they want you to do is acid wash the floor, and they recommend going in 10 foot by 10 foot sections. My garage is 20 by 20, so I was able to measure 4 10 foot by 10 foot sections. I measured it out and taped it so I was able to stay within the boundaries of the section. You then want to mix the acid wash with 2 gallons of water. You want to make sure you pre-wet the entire floor, and then you'll spread evenly the acid wash over the entire floor. And then you're just going to scrub away. I would recommend not wearing Crocs. You really don't want this stuff on your skin. So I just continued along acid washing and scrubbing it away. You then want to rinse it all down pretty good and make sure that you rinse your driveway off as well. You don't want this stuff to etch your driveway. Continuing along, I bought the Rust-Oleum concrete patch that they recommend to fill holes and cracks. I was pretty pleased with the product. After I had coated the floor, I was pretty much unable to tell the spots that I had used the patch on. I didn't even bother sanding it either after I had patched it, and it still came out pretty good. Here I'm just testing out a sample to see how much chips I should use. I ended up buying my own chips. I wanted custom colors, and I thought I was going to need more chips than I actually did. I ended up buying 5 pounds and only ended up using 1.5 pounds. I could have used up to 2 if I had spread them out more evenly, but you want to just keep that in mind when you buy your own chips. So this is the night before coating the garage. I'm just prepping and making sure I have all my materials. The way we're going to be doing it is we're going to be starting at the back and working our way towards the garage door. Since I bought 2 kits, I have 4 packets of the coating in total. So I'm trying to divide my garage into 4 sections. That way I can evenly spread out the coating. And this was really helpful to make sure that you don't spread too much or too little. I ended up only needing to do 4 5 foot by 20 foot sections. You want to start by mixing the separate A and B pouches, and then you'll burst them together and mix them for a couple minutes. You then cut it open. I poured a small 4-inch wide strip close to the edge so that I could begin cutting in. I would recommend cutting a small hole in the bag. A lot of times the bag got away from me and I ended up pouring way too much in certain areas. It's easy enough to spread around, but it would be a lot easier if you just pour an even amount over the area you're working on. As far as brushes go, they recommend using a good quality synthetic brush. I didn't want to spend money on that. I ended up just using some cheap chip brushes. They did end up losing some bristles in the coating, but they were relatively easy to pick out. The coating self-levels, and it's pretty easy to see any debris that might get caught in it. Once you finish cutting in a section, you can begin pushing the paint around. I had my friend here to help me, and it was really helpful having another person. It's definitely something you can do on your own, but you have 45 minutes to an hour of pot life before it gets too hard to work with. You could probably do it on your own. It took us no more than an hour and a half to finish the entire garage, and that's with 4 kits. So we had plenty of time to get it done, but it definitely helps to have another hand. This is where I ended up changing the roller cover. I read online how the provided covers aren't very good and they end up breaking apart and getting stuck in the coating. I'm not sure what caused these areas to look this way, but they definitely could have used more material. With the first section coated, I began throwing the chips. You want to leave about a foot without chips so that you can roll the next section into it. You want to leave a wet edge. You really don't want to grab a lot of chips when you throw them. You just want a pinch full, almost like you're throwing salt. If you grab too much, they tend to clump in the air and then they fall as a single mass to the floor. So we just continued along with the whole garage, painting and chipping, and we finally finished. Like I said, it only took us about an hour and a half to do the whole thing. It wasn't too difficult. This was probably the easiest part of the process, but you really want to make sure to try and stay clean. It was a very windy day for us, so we ended up having one of our bags get blown away by the wind, and we got some coating on my actual concrete pad, but it ended up being all right. It wasn't too much. So in the end, I'm pretty satisfied. The first day after it was done, I was a little disappointed in some of the areas that I wish I had prepped better. Towards the very first section that we did, it ended up being pretty dry compared to the other sections, and there was a lot of visible imperfections. But at the end of the day, I'm pretty pleased with the way that it came out. It'll work for me. I'm just going to be building stuff in here, and it makes it a lot easier to clean up sawdust. And my son, he definitely loved it. I wish this video had audio, but for some reason my camera wasn't recording audio. He was giggling and laughing and having the time of his life on this new garage floor. Stay tuned for more videos about me renovating the house and all things carpentry and woodworking. Thanks for watching.